So, good morning. On behalf of the German House for Research and Innovation, São Paulo, I welcome you to this conference, The Missing Link, Why Science and Economy Need Artistic Research. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mrs. Ursula Bertram and Werner Preißing. The stage is yours.
And we are living in Germany, and this is our area. This is the university with all these faculties and problems and research. And we built a little ID factory in this complex of university, and we understand ourselves like submarines who are looking in the other faculties and work with them. What we try is we transfer artistic thinking and acting in non-artistic fields. What we think is, in art, there are strategies who are different to other strategies in science. And we want to transfer the strategy and put it down in other fields like science and economy. This is our little ID factory, and the question is, why should we do this? There is Edward de Bono, who was a scientist in education, and he says that creativity is one of the most important driver of the future. And we believe in this. And Werner, the co-partner of ID Factory, will explain you why this might be true.
Well, thank you very much, Ursula. It's a very interesting sentence, because if we won't change actively, if we don't do something, something will be done by others. There will be a development. We make something or we don't, but it will be a development. First thing, I don't know if you know this curve here, cycles of innovation. It's a Russian investigator who made researches. 1800 it starts the investigation. It was the time when we had still the start of steam engines and production of cotton and so on. But it was not possible to make a transport for all that was produced. And then came a new basic innovation, and this was the train, the shipping, and for this it was necessary developing steam, for example. And the networks used for this were the road. Okay, there are always, if I'm going through like this, it was trading networks, it was road networks. Afterwards, the energy, electricity, chemistry, it was around 1900 that started with new basic innovation. It was always basic innovation that made the development for the future. It was development of cars, and therefore it was necessary to have enough oil. Indeed, the development of these curves were independent from the world wars. It's very interesting. It was a natural curve, and afterwards, now we came in the time you already know personally, you know, when the first computers were invented, the next development was information networks. Here, the red point here is around 2017, and you can say, okay, information networks, and there will be something here very interesting. It's near a point which is down, and the future will bring something very, very, very interesting. It will be something that brings a new development. And there are researchers who say everyone is interested. What will be the next basic innovation? And there are researchers who say next will be human capital, education, well-being, more nanotechnology, and thinking networks, Internet of Things, and smart home, and smart office, and health. Now we have our social networks, and that's a development that started and will have influence on politics and everywhere. It was Nikolai Dimitriyevich Kondratyev who has invented this. For him it was dangerous because in Russia at the time of Stalin it was clear that capitalism goes down, and that makes a turnaround. It was not very usual. Here the curves, you can play with them. Development, of course, it's a higher level from those curves, and the points that are interesting are always the points peak and the lowest point, and very important, the turning points. Here are some spots. Okay, we have saturation, we have overproduction, consumption, and overvaluation of material. That's important. That's philosophical aspect of this. Overvaluation of the material. We are saturated, everything is well, there will be no need for innovation. And that goes down here, and like depression, unemployment, revolution, at least wars, social conflicts, and constructive destruction. And the constructive destruction is something that's leading us to the next phase. This is time for inventors, for new market, for optimism, and also for imitators in economies. And here is where we are. We have social conflicts, unemployment, for example, the fear of loss. And I hope we have not too much revolution and war. This is an example. I've made some investigations myself on development of enterprises. The blue curve here, and you see, if you see long-term line, you see those curves. Why it is like that? A last explication, like the moving of a balloon that has some motivation uplift and gravity that goes down. What you must do there as an enterprise, you must find a balance between uplift and gravity, innovation and redundancy. Okay, and now we are on the point. Ursula will show some things about possibility of producing innovations and reduce redundancy. And that's why if you are able to make this, the balloon will fly. Thank you very much, and Ursula will try to make something clear by practice. It was a bit theoretical.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You know, as you can see here, if you don't make art development, it will be it's bad news, you know. It's bad news that we are 2070 and we're going down. Now the good news that we developed we developed a system how to develop innovation. Do you want to do with me a 1-minute workshop? When I tell you what to draw, you draw it. And I'm very excited because I've never done it in Brazil, this little workshop. I've never done it. I've just done it in Europe. And I don't know if it works because it's so different here. You just have 20 seconds to draw what I say, okay? Please draw a table, a vase, and flower. In Portuguese?
Uma mesa, uma vase de flores e flores.
20 seconds. Go on.
4, 3, 2, 0.
So now I'm very excited if it works in Brazil. In Europe it works always. I painted what I think what you painted. You all have drawn a table, a vase and flowers all in one together. You know, the vase is on the table, not beside the table. Did I tell you that you should make the vase on the table? No, I didn't do this. I just said, please, you had it beside, no. Okay, so who put the vase and the flowers all together at this? You did this? Okay. So, is there somebody else who didn't, who painted it one after another? No? Yeah. So this is 100%, thank you. And the next thing is that we all paint or draw a rectangle table. Who has rectangle table? Yeah, that's great. So this is global. This exercise is global. And the vase. This is a kind of, you know, ordinary, elementary vase. Who has something like this? I mean, it's not this, and it's not this. Who has something like this? Oh, this is more than 50%. Because I don't know what is the vase like in Brazil. So this is very global. And who has the flowers like this? Oh, this is fantastic, thank you. So you know, this is very funny because why are we all drawing the same thing? And I want to tell you why we are drawing this, because our brain works like this. Our brain tries to propose us something which is the most elementary thing what can be asked, because our brain is very lazy, you know, very lazy. It is not a brain which loves innovation. No, if it's an everyday life, the brain always proposes you, which is very simple, and that's a problem. So no innovation. So we can be very angry about our brain, right? But if there is a big noise above you on the roof, and something maybe will fall on your head, this is the right brain, because the brain works very quick. This might be something which falls on my head and I have to go away. Okay, so in a way this brain works right, because to come through life all day, this works right. But on the other side, for innovation, for new things, it's very lazy. So that you have to know, if you're thinking about your life, and if you're thinking about your professional life, that if you don't do something against this, if you don't try to be non-linear, if you're not asking your question, which is not the everyday question, you will get the answer of your brain, which is very lazy. So your brain doesn't make innovation every day. You have to do something for this. We do artistic thinking and acting since 2003, and we have conferences and we have workshops, and we will have workshops here, because the question is, everybody talks about innovation, but how does it work? how do you get your brain to make innovations? It's not so easy. Here you see what I meant. This is the brain, right? And you have a right side and a left side. The left side is more or less ratio, and it's linear, and the right side is intuition, and it's non-linear. So art is more or less on this side, right? This side of our brain is more or less closed systems. There we learn how to make mathematics, right? So this is closed system. We need this. We need, if you operate it, being operated. I'm glad if the operators operates what is ill and not being creative, right? So, but what we need for development of innovation, we need this side. We need this side, open systems, and being non-linear. Closed system has about standardization, laws, stereotypes, rules, maybe institution. My institution is a little bit a closed system, but it has to be. You know, it's a big university. You have your rules. This is it. I mean, it cannot be otherwise. But to create innovation, we need the other side. And what is the other side? The other side is open system, and we have a lot of open system. Clouds. We look up the sky, and there's a cloud. And it never has been this cloud of million and million of years. Your head, I mean the way you look like, it's unique. Imagine millions and millions and millions of people are born, but your face is unique. This is non-linear. So we have many non-linear systems. Ideas and innovations are on this side, on open systems, because if you're stuck to rules and stereotypes, no innovation. This is our education in universities. You're educated here very much on this side, and here is the education of non-linear art and architecture and philosophy and religion and all the things who are not straight to know. You know, this is, and I think for innovation and for the future, what Werner said, we have to make it bigger, right? So that's what we know, and that's what we can do. You know, thinking, realizing, we know this. We have this. We learned this 9 years in school, thinking, realizing. What we didn't learn is the right side. And this is, the drawing is from Werner, and the thinking, realizing, and think out of the box and experimentation. We need this. I think before you learn how to invent something, you must learn how to invent, you know. Not thinking at the product. This is yesterday. We have to think at processes and strategies. This is today. I found out something very funny. You will like it. I gave my students a piece of wood, you know, which looks like this. And there is a type of students who just make some holes, but the tree is still there, you know. There are some students who change the tree, but to form it, which is known. It is known. I mean, we know those squares. And there are some students who make it very chaotic, you know, and here is the one where you cannot tell anymore where is the tree. And I found out that this is a perfect secretary where there is somebody who you have to optimize. And I found out that's the type in an enterprise which will perfectly develop what is important in an enterprise. And I found out this type is a very social type because from everybody is something in there, you know. And I found out that this is the perfect inventor We have to have this one to invent the future. And that's how we work. Artifactory makes a speech, but in the water, you know. And if you once made a speech in the water, you can do it everywhere. And here you see what it comes up to. It's an example. If you think out of the box, if you think away from the box, there were, I don't know, more than 100 years, a leg which is not there anymore because of an accident. They always imitated the leg like it was. But then they thought out of the box, innovation. And the innovation is that here, this guy, they invented a leg which is much more effective. Right, this is more effective. But you have really to think out of the box to invent this. So this is typical. My second sentence in Portuguese. You know, with art you can really look in the future. I know how to look in the future because I tested it. And I give you the last example for this. You know, this is Picasso. And Picasso, 1913, you know what he did? First he painted, and then he glued in the picture a paper. And you know what this meant? I mean, everybody says, yeah, this is nice and this. But this doesn't interest me. It meant that the disciplines of sculpture, painting, and drawing were dissolved. Yeah, dissolved. So this was the first moment where they stopped to have painting, graphic, and sculpture. So this was the moment the discipline worked together. And nowadays, that's why I say in art you can look in the future. Now, about 50 years later, there came the enterprises who works with other enterprises. You know, in former there was an enterprise and he did like TVs, monitors, but just this. And enterprises of today work with different disciplines, with different products. So this was the beginning. 50 years later, it was in society and enterprise. So this is Santiago Sierra, who is in Mexico and who cares about a square of ice, you know, ice, and it's melting. So no product, again, no product. It's a process which is nowadays important. Here also, Francis Alice, When Faith Moves Mountains. I like this because it was in Peru and people had a bad time with their presidents, you know, and they wanted to show that this is not good. And so what they did is 100 of people, students and workers, shuffle a piece of sand 1 meter before. So the mountain grew 1 meter further on. And here is Marina Abramovich, also without product, who in New York, in Museum of Modern Art, who looked just at one who came up, you know. She was just looking. She sat here on this table 721 hours on a chair. And there were 1,560 people to look in her eyes. And look what happens. That happened, you know. That happened with communication. So this is a very important piece. It's no product, it's about communication. That's what we need nowadays. We need good communication. So, and this is one of the last pictures. What we think is that art, science, and society and economy have to work together, and we try this, and this is the end. Thank you very much.